Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's Jennifer Rizzio, and this is Conversations with Really Cool People Doing Really Cool Things. And I'm so excited to talk to Melanie Benson. So she's amazing. So I got a really hard question for you, Melanie. What
Ooh.
is the really cool thing you do?
Oh, when you've been in the business for 24 years, you have so many answers to that. But I think where things have landed in this season is I help experts who feel a bit invisible or maybe have been relying on referrals and that referral source has dried up to stand out with what I like to call their lighthouse message. It's like this message that becomes a beacon and then amplify that across all different audiences. So you're attracting those dream clients that are out there searching for you right now.
Love that. And so I can hear people going, well, how do we do that? And what does that look like? So, how do we do that? And what does that look like?
Well, I think first of all, let's just define what a lighthouse message is. I've played around with a lot of ways to help people understand a message that really becomes that beacon. Like if you think of a lighthouse, it like emits this light beacon, right? And you
Right.
can see it from miles away. Now, obviously, part of the purpose of a lighthouse is to steer you away from the rocks, but it's also like this light is going to guide you to like safety. Now, when we think about that for us, like we want to guide people to us because we are a place where they're going to get a powerful transformation or a solution or steps or whatever or service that's going to transform their lives. And when we have such a crowded market, you need a way to stand out. And a lighthouse message has a couple of key ingredients. One, it's specific.
Oh,
Okay. So one of the things I have to do recovery with people who they're out there and they're like, I'm visible, I'm speaking it, but I'm not getting the bookings like I used to. And it's because the market shifted. What used to be really catchy and interesting but maybe kind of generic and vague doesn't really land the same. And there's just so much out there that sounds similar. I know you get it. Like every
yeah.
time you're scrolling through Facebook, right? Or even if you were to go scrolling through a list of podcasts to listen to, you're like, okay, that sounds just like that one. I just listened to that one. You need something that's specific and it's really relevant, but it's also unique. And it really helps express and like engage somebody in your brand message. And I think that's where we get to be creative and unique. And I don't know about you, but like it's hard to see that forest through the trees. Like it's hard to
Yeah.
do for yourself sometimes because you're in it. You're like, why isn't this more compelling? Why isn't this interesting? It is to me. Well, we have to look at it through the lens of our listeners and the people who we want to attract in. So that's what a lighthouse message is. And I think we all have one inside of us. But as I was saying, like sometimes it's hard to see it for yourself. Sometimes we, like, I remember sitting in an audience several years ago and there was a guy, I was at a multiple day event, and there was a guy who took the stage and he gave this presentation. And I thought to myself, I was bored out of my mind. And I'm not going to say who it was to not like bashing on anybody, but it was a sales mentor
Right.
who's old school, been around for a long time. And I thought, I this like is so boring. And what had happened was he was telling the same message with the same patterns, with the same methodology, with the
No
same thing.
evolution.
Yeah, like cookie cutter. And it hadn't really evolved. And so it was stale and it was stagnant and it didn't really bring anything to life. And I think some of us, I am guilty. I like to find something and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And, like if we're really looking at what the market needs from us right now, what's going to get us in front of real audiences that are searching for solutions, we need to have that kind of fresh, energized facelift on our message.
Love that. What are some questions that we can ask ourselves to get that energized facelift?
Mhm. Yeah, I have a formula I teach. I'll go deeper into. I'm doing a master class in a real soon. I don't know when this is airing compared to my master class, but I like love this formula because I think it really makes sense. And one of the things you can ask yourself inside the formula is called the rocks method. This is how I do messaging. And one of the things you can ask yourself right now is what is the most relevant and pressing conversation that's happening inside your ideal clients, your prospective client's head that they may not even be saying out loud yet?
Love that question.
Yeah. And that will start to get, and I would say write on it. I mean, if you're savvy with ChatGPT, you can do some ChatGPT research, but you want to actually start to get connected to what is relevant right now, not what was relevant 6 months ago, not what was relevant a year ago. I think a lot of copywriters, as we emerged into 2024, got the big, like, clear message: AI is here.
Right. It's not going anywhere.
Copyright, yeah, copywriting via AI is dominating the relevant conversation in people's mind. They're either, I hate it, I don't want anything to do with it, or they're, I'm curious, how is this going to save me a fortune in copywriter fees and make it so much more accessible? And you need to know what side of that equation you are in if you're a copywriter or someone that has to do with content, and like dig into that because that's a relevant conversation right now.
Love that. Where do you think people, you're all about visibility. So where do you think people fall down in being visible?
Mm. So I just wrote an article for my community on visibility isn't the goal. And let's think about it. Visibility is a means to an end. Now, I am a huge fan of being visible consistently, where everywhere your ideal clients are looking. My favorites are podcasts and virtual events and content on social media. Those are my three go-tos, which would blow your mind if you knew me like 10 years ago. You'd be like, social media, Melanie, really? Never thought that would be my thing. Um, but what I think happens is we forget that visibility has to be strategic. And we make these really simple and super common mistakes that cost us monetization, cost us results, cost us our ability to make that impact that we deeply want to make because we're winging it.
Mm,
We're like, I'm a great speaker on stage. Like, why do I need to figure out how to really dial in my message and shape it in a way that's more accessible on podcasts? That's because the audiences are really different. They listen differently, they take action differently. In an audience, you have this real, especially if you're in person, you have this real connection that you're building, and you've got probably somewhere, between 20 to 45 dedicated minutes with just you and the audience. When you're in a podcast, you're fighting multi-sensory stimulation. People are doing all kinds of other things and listening to you at the same time. So you have to have a different approach to how you engage the listener and make them want to take action. So you probably know this a little bit about me now, Jennifer, since we've been getting to know each other. I have a lot of people that reach out and they say, I've been doing this podcast tour. I got booked on all these podcasts and I got zilch. Nada, nothing, nothing happened. Why? What am I doing wrong? Or they're like, I gave up on podcasts. I'm like, don't give up. Lean in and optimize. Learn how to do it strategically, intentionally, and powerfully so that you are able to. I mean, there's so much that comes out of it. The client, the leads, the audience building is just a fraction of what I call that $1 million visibility that we can access. There's so much more that can unfold when you really learn how to shape your message in a way that builds what I call this golden thread. We want to start with like intrigue, and then we want to like guide people to where you can do something that helps them.
love that. Where do you feel that people get stuck in their own ways and why?
Where do people get stuck in their ways? Here's an interesting one. I was working with a group a few months back who all in their own way were seasoned speakers. They'd been on stages, they'd done podcast interviews, they'd had their own podcast, like they'd done a lot of different things, but they were stuck around how they told stories inside the interview style conversation. So telling stories on stage, telling stories when you're the main, like there's not a dynamic with someone else is very different than telling stories when you're in a conversation. And what happened is we went through and we do story makeover day. So we take stories that they're really excited about that are in their heart, or they're like, this is such a great story. And we make them over so that they're compelling and intriguing and cause action. Like they get the ideal listen. Not all listeners are your ideal clients,
Right.
right? But you want the ideal clients to hear themselves and go, boom, I'm in. And I think this is one of the ways we get in our own way. I've done this a long time. I know how to do this. I can figure it out on my own. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to make a whole bunch of mistakes and spend a whole bunch of money to because I can figure it out. Well, yeah, you can, and you don't have to do what I did, which is make a bazillion mistakes to figure out what actually was going to work.
Love that. As we're kind of wrapping up here, where do people find you? Where do they like? I know it's going to be in the show notes. I know you're doing a master class. So what are you going to cover in that master class?
Hmm. Yes. So the master class is what it's called monetize your message, how to access $1 million visibility to grow your audience and attract clients. And what I teach in that is how to use a 5 point system that doesn't just get you visible, but that monetizes that visibility so that you're using the right message in the right places so you're attracting those right clients. And I also will go into how to exponentially compound the results that you get from one interview because you're not just relying on what the host brings. Like there
Okay.
are 3 layers that you can tap into and build on that turns every podcast interview, every conversation you're having with an amazing host like you
Thank you.
into a multifaceted visibility stream. And this is what so many people, they're in the spray and pray mode and they're just going out and doing all these interviews, but because they're missing the strategy, they're also missing the results. And just like tiny tweaks have massive revenue and results at store. So we're going to go through the model. And some people are really looking for a guide for themselves right now on how to get from I'm confused or I've pivoted my brand. I don't really know what my message is anymore to crystal clear messaging that attracts their ideal clients. And that I'll tell people how we can work together. And if you want, we can actually start this process with this free resource right now. Like you don't even have to wait for the masterclass. I have this resource called $1 Million Visibility Framework. And inside of that, I go through my methodology of how you step through step by step into this is how you become the person, the expert that can attract ideal clients, put $100,000 in your business this year, and really stay authentic and genuine in your messaging and what I call like access these $1 million visibility streams.
Yeah, because if you're not sustainable, it's a hobby, not a business.
Yeah. And also, like, there's a lot of pressure be visible consistently. But if you don't have the methodology in place, you're going to do something. And it's what do they call it? Like busy work versus momentum.
Doing for just
You're,
doing.
yeah, you're just doing something to go through the motions, but it's not producing a result. And eventually you're going to go, why am I doing this? You should be doing it. I want you to do it. But I just want to give you a few tools and tips to help you do it in a way that gets you better results.
Beautiful. Listen, everyone, I know this woman fairly well. She's super smart. She's super gifted and she really wants to be of service. So I'm going to strongly suggest that you reach out, take the master class. If you're watching this and the master class, we'll figure it out a way to get you the master class.
Well, we'll get you the framework too,
Yeah,
so you can download the free framework no matter what time you access this, and it's always relevant for
I
you.
love it. I want to thank you so much for playing with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me into the conversation with cool people. I feel so honored.
You're very cool people. And everyone, you've been watching another episode of Conversations with Really Cool People Doing Really Cool Things. I'm Jennifer Urzio. Bye for now.